Welcome to episode 63 of the Superpowered Fancast. This is Darren. Now, we have a great episode for you and a return to regular posting for me. Now, just a little background for you guys who have been wondering where I've been. Now, my family and I were in the process of purchasing a house and all the bother, expense, and labor that ensues. Now that it's all over, I have a new space that I can dedicate to the podcast and YouTube channel, and I plan to make the most of it, which is why I'm grateful my first show back features an interview with the absolutely delightful Niki Koss. Now, before I get to the interview, I have some geek-related items I wanted to talk about real quick. So the first thing is Paramount Plus released the first teaser for the live-action Halo series coming in 2022, and as a Halo fan, I'm excited. Now, there isn't a lot in the actual teaser besides Pablo Schreiber's back as he puts on the helmet, but it's enough to literally tease fans who've been waiting years for the Halo series to come to life. Now, next, real quick, according to The Hollywood Reporter, Sam Raimi and the cast of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness are gearing up for about 6 additional weeks of shooting on the upcoming film. Now, reshoots are not unusual, especially for a Marvel film, but these reshoots are being called significant, which means they're either cleaning up some story issues or adding elements connected to possibly other films in the MCU. Now, Multiverse of Madness has already been pushed back from its initial March 22 release date to May of 2022. Now, Disney Plus Day has come and gone, and we got some great sneak peeks at upcoming projects and confirmation of others, including a second season of What If. But I know a lot of Star Wars fans that were expecting to see a full trailer for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, as well as the Andor series that was actually in production already last year when the Obi-Wan series was announced. Now, to be honest, I wasn't expecting too much because Lucasfilm and Disney like to do things differently. But I was thinking that with no new Star Wars feature film being released next year, what better way to celebrate May the 4th than with full trailers for Andor, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and more. Some quick comic book news. I want everyone to check out what Scott Snyder is doing with his Best Jacket Press imprint. We Have Demons is definitely my favorite series so far, with some gorgeous art from Greg Capullo and a compelling story from Snyder. I also really love the dark, intimate danger of Night of the Ghoul as well. Now, all of the series so far are richly engaging and diverse in both story and themes, and I absolutely recommend checking them out. Now, you can find them on Comixology digitally because they're Comixology originals, or you can head to your local comic book shop and ask for them. Now, back to the reason why you're actually here. Niki Koss. Niki Koss is a writer, actor, producer, and director who you might have seen in shows like Freeform's Famous in Love, or in films like Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse and the Terrence Malick produced film Red Wing. Now, she's making her feature film debut, directing debut, I need to say, with the psychological thriller Night Night. And the film looks visually engaging with an interesting and compelling plot. It looks gorgeous, and I can't wait to see it myself. So, without further ado, here's my interview with writer, actor, and director Niki Koss.
Hi.
Hi.
What a fun background you've got there.
Yeah, I just had to, get one of the shots from the movie. Just wanted to let you, I guess, feel at home. I don't know if that sounds right or
I
not.
feel very at home. Thank you. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here as well. I'm sure you got like a lot of stuff going on with the movie, so I promise I won't take up too much of your time.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, I just kind of want to jump right in and ask some questions. I looked at the trailer and reading through all the press stuff, and the movie just seems really interesting to me. So I just kind of want to dive in. Now, I'm a huge fan of psychological thrillers myself, but I know they tend to be kind of like a tough needle to thread thematically. So, what about Night Night inspired you to want to tell that story?
You articulated that very well. It's definitely a tough needle to thread thematically. So I didn't write it, but I know that Robert Johnson, who's the writer, he's actually the chief of police of a small town in Texas and called Corsicana. And he presented the script to me. And what really drew me to it initially was he said that he was inspired by the different people he met on the force throughout his experience on the force, and that's kind of what inspired the characters in the film, and the story sort of trickled in around that. So I was definitely drawn to the how based in reality it was,
Mhm.
because it's not often you get to see a psychological thriller that is threaded from reality, to use your string analogy.
But even though it's in reality, there's so many, just again from the trailer alone, there seem to be so many really interesting visual moments that almost can kind of skirt to the supernatural. And just because of that intense imagery, like what kind of informed your decision about how you wanted to shoot the film, like what and what you wanted to see in certain films, and kind of what you wanted those scenes or the movie itself to kind of elicit in the audience?
So I would say it's two things. One, just my general aesthetic as a filmmaker, sort of on the very visual end of the spectrum, and I really like to play with colors. So that came into play just naturally. But April, the Brenna's character, who's right behind you, she is really in almost like a dream state in the whole film. And the more we delve into the film and the longer it goes, the less of a the more difficult it is for her to understand whether or not she's in reality or in a dream, or sort of what's going on at all. So I wanted to sort of parallel that concept visually and create this world that was a very strange dichotomy with what was on the paper. I wanted to create something that felt almost bizarre compared to what you would imagine it to look like when reading the script. So I think that's kind of how it all culminated into what it is visually.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes through, especially in the shots that I was looking at, like the pink pickup truck against the pink garage, and like the baby blue and the baby blue and kind of the bed in the bedroom scene where it's just like baby blue lamps and kind of a baby blue blanket. So just again, back to what you were saying about how you shoot visually, that definitely comes through in a lot of the shots.
Thank you.
Now you
I
said
love
that, oh, I'm
attention
sorry.
to detail.
Well, I'm a visual person, so I'm a comic book geek. So like I visually look at the page, and then I get immersed in the story. So when both of those things work together, it really kind of connects with me. That's why I want to ask you so many questions about both the look and kind of the process of the film. Now you said that it was that Night Night's a refreshing new take on a female-driven psychological thriller. Now, just kind of contrasting with other thrillers in the genre, like what about the genre did you feel needed a new take?
Wow, that's a really good question. Um, well, I have to admit, I was fairly new to the genre when coming onto this
Mhm.
film. And I'm not a big horror person. Now I'm a big psychological thriller person, but I wasn't prior to directing this. And I really inundated myself with psychological thrillers leading up to the shooting. I watched at least one a day for like a month and a half. And they're formulaic in a weird way because, like you said, it's kind of hard to uh, thematically and plot wise. It's the goal of a psych thriller is to kind of keep you on the edge of your seat and kind of keep you guessing and keep you trying to figure out what's going on the whole time. So they're formulaic, but they're also really not. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. So I definitely wanted to play with that concept, but what I felt like was unique about Night Night, and what I felt like maybe needed some refreshing within that genre was the again sort of the parallel between the visual world that I wanted to create versus the story as a whole. And I felt like a lot of these psych thrillers followed a formula visually, and I wanted to deviate from that. And I wanted to, like, the opening shot of the film is bright colors and it's Valentine's Day and there's hearts everywhere, and it really kind of feels like a romantic comedy almost. So I kind of wanted to play with that, and that bizarre element, I wanted that to contribute to sort of the eeriness of it all.
Oh yeah, and I can see that again, just kind of as a fan of thrillers and horror myself. Like, again, the genre itself lends itself more towards a lot of shadows and things like that, and dark colors, and the color palette on Night Night just seems so different. But it also, in that sense, it kind of enhances the strangeness of the circumstances a little bit, because you're waiting for the shadows to be the thing that fear, but everything is just kind of right there. You kind of see it.
Yes, yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. That was definitely one of the goals, because the reality of the situation is almost as scary as what you don't see.
Exactly. It's like because again, just even from reading the synopsis, like everything about the film itself, just how April is dealing with not only the death of her parents and her brother, and a car accident, and coma, and waking up, and this boyfriend that she finds herself being with. All of that stuff is just like right there in her life. There's nothing that necessarily needs to be brought out from the shadows. So it's just it's interesting to kind of see how that is. I'm interested in seeing how you play with that, with those things just kind of being right out there in the open.
Oh, you just get it, don't you? I love it.
I try, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, this is really just such a cool interview, because I feel like you're just like vibing off everything I'm saying. I love it.
Well, again, I love the genre, and I love anything that kind of challenges the genre, or challenges genres that I've grown up with, because horror and suspense can kind of fall into the same type of elements, and because they fall into the same elements, it's comforting, but it's not challenging. So
Yeah.
I'm always interested in seeing something that's challenging, because again, if I'm going to be scared of something, or if I'm going to be unnerved by something, I want to be able to see it and not predict that it's about to happen. Like,
Yeah.
again, I've been watching horror films for years. I know what's going to happen next, and it's fun to watch, but at the same time, there's no challenge left in it. So this one, just again, from the trailer, there seems so many different things that will kind of challenge me visually.
Yeah.
Kind of see where the suspense is coming from, and even in the moments that are suspenseful from it, again, it's right there.
Yeah, well, that was definitely the goal. And, I'll never forget the first time I watched No Country for Old Men, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. There's barely any music in the whole movie. And it's almost like 10 times more adrenaline pumping because of it, because it deviates from the formula so much that we know and we love, and throwing us off our game in that sense. It just really lends itself to being on, the edge of your seat. So that was something I wanted to kind of play with visually too. So I'm really glad that came across.
Oh yeah, because I mean, and I did kind of see notes of the Coen brothers in that. And well, again, like, I love thrillers. So I mean, Blood Simple and No Country for Old Men. Like, I again, those are the films I grew up with. But and just kind of going into that as a director, like, you've assembled like such a really interesting and brilliant cast in Brenna D'Amico and Tony Todd and Eric Roberts. Like, how is it kind of directing those veteran actors, and were they able to influence your vision, or were you able to kind of get them on board with yours?
Well, they were definitely open to, the vision and especially Tony, Todd, and Eric. They've done this so many times that
Mhm.
they just kind of show up and they're like, "What do you want from me?" But I found with those two, especially, I kind of just there wasn't really much directing to do with those two. I mean, little tidbits here and there, but I kind of just let them do what they know how to do so well already. And
Yeah.
I always find with actors, I'm not big on auditions. I like to go kind of straight for offers for actors that
Mhm.
whose work I feel like I can really trust and feel good about and confident in. So the reason I do that is because I feel like the character becomes their own once they take it on and once they
Mhm.
decide to play it. And it's my job to let them take ownership of the character and not do it for them. And I'm there to guide them and give them ideas and help them, bounce their ideas off of someone and get creative. But really, I have to trust that I hired them for a reason and, they're going to do the best job at interpreting this character. So I definitely went in with that mentality. And Brenna was an incredible collaborator. She was just a director's dream. She was open to absolutely anything. She showed up with so much professionalism and just enthusiasm, and she just knew her lines front and back. She was incredible to work with. I truly want her in like everything I do.
Well, that's awesome. And again, going back to what you were saying, as far as like not necessarily liking the, well, I don't know if you necessarily said liking the casting process, but kind of reaching out to people. And like you started your own production company, K Factor Films. And like what led you to go into the production side of the industry and what do you find rewarding about it?
So I've been producing for like about 8 years now. And the reason I started was because as an actor, you can really only do so much to progress your career. You kind of just have to sit around and wait for auditions, and you can
Mhm.
make connections and take people out to coffee. But I was doing everything I possibly could, and I was still waiting around, and
Right.
I'm a control freak a little bit, and I like to, when I want something, I like to go get it, and I don't want to wait around
Mhm.
for it. So producing kind of fell into place very naturally because of that. And I just wanted to work. I wanted to be creative and create content. So I started creating it, and I guess labeling myself as a producer, just kind of by default, because I guess that's what I was doing. And then I ended up producing everything I directed and things that I didn't direct, just because, again, control freak. I just wanted to make sure it all
Mhm.
went the way I wanted it to go. Um, and then as far as my production company, K Factor Films goes, I had a plethora of projects sort of under my belt, and it felt like it was time to put them all under one umbrella and to take that umbrella and just fill more amazing projects under it, and just fill it up with great content. So it was really just the right timing and kind of a long time coming.
Right. As far as the, again, going back to the film, um, what have what have you gotten as far as like what's been some of the best feedback you've gotten about the film, either by the story or the visuals or the or your directing?
Besides everything you've said in this interview. um I mean, people have really been responding to the visual element of the film, and especially the colors, and that feels really good to hear. And I think a lot of people have really loved the performances, especially Brenna's, which, I mean, she was phenomenal in this film. So that's been really special to hear. But oh, and the music. I take a lot of pride in the music because I worked hand in hand with our composer, Michelle Richards, and our music supervisor, Alicia, and they are just powerhouse women, forces to be reckoned with. And
Mhm.
we really wanted to do something really unique with the music in this film. And like the visual element, we wanted to sort of turn the formula on its head and create something different and
Right.
special and unexpected. And so people have been responding really well to the music.
Well, that's great. Like, I was kind of want to know, like, again, I I don't particular. I don't want to just keep throwing praise out there, but I love
It's
how.
okay. You could throw praise.
But I do love how the film looks visually. Like just kind of so just kind of want to know, like, I guess from that from the visual perspective, like were there moments that you found difficult to shoot visually the way you wanted to, or were you able to just kind of get in there and have things the way you wanted before you shot the scene?
Yeah, there were definitely difficult moments. I mean, on a low budget film, you're always gonna have to compromise your vision in some way. So that was tough, especially when I was really felt so strongly about the vision I had in my head.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to give that up on the day when you realize it's just not gonna happen the way you wanted it to. Timing and money has a huge, plays a huge role in that. And I would say the biggest challenge for me was on a technicality level. I didn't go to film school. So everything I know about directing, I learned on set or I taught myself.
Mhm.
So there's a little bit of a learning curve technically, because I'm also not tech savvy at all when it comes to lighting and cinematography. So sometimes it's hard. I found it difficult to communicate what I wanted to see. And how to articulate it in a technical way that would be quick and easy to understand for my gaffer and my DP.
Mhm.
So that was a challenge. And moving into the next one, I'm really going to pay special attention to the lighting so that I know exactly how to get it to where I want it to be.
Well, that's refreshing to hear, because it's refreshing to hear that that you hear about it kind of after the fact, that there are things you have to compromise, but it is refreshing to hear that about the learning curve of it, because a lot of times there's such a mystification about the process, and it's interesting to hear it kind of demystified in that way. And you were talking about your next project. I was looking on your production website, and you've written a feature called Daisy. Is that the next project that you're directing?
That's my baby. I'm very, very, very excited about that film when it ultimately comes to fruition, whenever that will be. That's not the next one I'm directing. It's definitely a big budget film, and we're still in the process of, making sure we have enough money to shoot it before we actually go ahead and do it.
Mhm.
That's when I cannot compromise on, because again, I have that vision so clear in my head, and I want it to, I really want that one to be perfect. But I'm going to be directing romantic comedy next, which I'm really excited about, because I'm looking forward to implementing my filmmaking aesthetic into a totally different genre,
Mhm.
and a genre that I would like to watch on a daily basis. This is my favorite type of film. I love a good romantic comedy.
Okay. So on that same note, are you kind of looking to uh try new genres with every project, or are you kind of trying to find what you like the most and kind of stick to it? Like what sorry.
Yeah. Well, unlike acting, I've been told by several people when they were giving me advice on directing that as a director, you have to pick a genre. And for your first, 5 projects, you have to stay in that lane. That's really the only way to do it. And I can't quite wrap my head around that, because I like a plethora of different genres, and I have excitement and vision for different types of films, and I don't want to box myself into one category.
Yeah,
So
that sounds very counterintuitive. Like
I
you just
know,
have to.
and it's hard for me, because I feel like a lot of these filmmakers that I love and I look up to, they do sort of stick to one genre. So I don't know kind of how I feel about that yet, but I kind of want to challenge it and
Mm,
see how it goes, and hopefully it goes well. But I'm kind of want to go against the grain on that one and dabble into a few different genres.
okay. Well, since we have been talking about psychological thrillers, if even if they're not necessarily psychological thrillers, as a director, what are some films that you would recommend to anyone considering getting behind the camera?
Ooh, gosh, I could list hundreds. Um, I mean, my favorite films directorially are Scorsese. I think that
Hmm.
he just really hits every angle in terms of, aesthetic, plot, music, and performance.
Yeah.
He comes full circle with his talent. And, we have other filmmakers like Wes Anderson, who's fantastic, but he's obviously he puts most of his eggs in the visual basket.
Hmm.
Sometimes other things maybe falter because of it. Everything he makes is still fantastic, but I think as far as going full circle, Scorsese is pretty fantastic. So I'd say The Departed, The Aviator, Wolf of Wall Street. Those
Hmm.
are like he's just, I mean, everything he makes is fabulous. But then I would say you have to dabble into like the Tarantino, Wes Anderson, Coen Brothers world to
Yeah.
see um, how highly unique these go-to famous directors are and what makes them so unique, because everything I create as a director, I take like a little sprinkle of each, and I
Hmm.
use that as influence for whatever I do next. So I would say pick the top 8 directors, watch their top 3 films, and then don't forget about the OG films like the Hitchcock films, and those black and whites are important too.
Oh yeah.
um yeah, so I would say just watch as much as you can, honestly. And my advice would be watch it once as just an audience member and enjoy it, and then watch it again right after with the sound turned off. Someone told me that once, and it was just great advice. You can really zero in on the cinematography, and you can figure out what's going on without the sound, which is every director's goal.
Right. Telling the actual story. Well, Niki Koss, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me and your thoughtful questions, and just it was really, really great talking to you.
Well, it was great talking to you too, and I would love to talk to you about your next project or any project you have coming up.
Definitely.
This is great, and I definitely look forward to seeing Night Night. And it's available for pre-order now on Apple, right, on iTunes.
Yes, and it comes out November 16th. I don't know when this is going to air, but that's tomorrow. So it'll be available on November 16th on VOD, Apple TV, iTunes, Amazon Prime, just like everywhere you can watch movies, pretty much. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts. You have to let me know what you think.
I will absolutely, because again, I look forward to it just visually alone, just from the story and the trailer. It's definitely something that's up my alley.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye. Once again, I want to thank Niki Koss for being on the Fancast. Speaking with her was a treat and definitely inspired me to keep doing this and reaching out to people doing exciting and interesting things in entertainment. Her feature film debut, directorial debut, Night Night, is available on demand on iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, Vudu, Vimeo, and more. You should definitely check it out. Also, you can always find the latest news, reviews, and interviews on my website, www.superpoweredfancast.com. You can always follow me on Twitter @superpoweredfan. Drop me an email. Let me know what you liked about the show and what you didn't. You can contact me via email at superpoweredfancast@gmail.com. Now, if you like this episode, please leave a review and let me know what you think. Until next time, this is Darren from Superpowered Fancast, signing off.